In this video, I'll be covering the front page of the Trig test review, problems 1 through 6, dealing with solving triangles. When we take a look at number 1, we should first notice that we have a right triangle, so we should use sohcahtoa. Your first step is to recognize, when asked to solve, all the things that you need to find. So if we take a look here, we are missing the measure of angle A. We need to find the measure of angle B, and we also need to find the value of side A, which is opposite angle A here. So to get started, the first thing I would do is, since we have to find either angle, have to find both angle A and angle B, is decide where you want to start. It doesn't matter which angle you start from. I'm going to start down here with B just because I just kind of have more room down here. And so if you have a hard time labeling your sides, remember you can put a stick person there. You would label the side opposite angle B, the opposite side. So you want to label the sides that have number values. The side opposite angle C here is our hypotenuse. So because I labeled O and H, I'm going to use the sine ratio. So remember, sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine adjacent over hypotenuse, and tangent is opposite over adjacent. So I would say that the sine of angle B is equal to the opposite over the adjacent sides, so 17 over 42. Remember that when we need to find an angle measure, we're going to have to do inverse sine in our calculator. We'll want to hit mode and make sure we are first in degree mode, and we are. And so I simply need to type in inverse sine of 17 divided by 42. Hit enter and go ahead and approximate to the tenths place. So the measure of angle B is 23.9 degrees. So finding the measure of a third angle is simple. Since we know that the sum of all the angles in a triangle add up to 180, I can subtract out the measures of the angles I already know. And here we would get 66.1 degrees for angle A. Now, so this is 66.1 and this is 23.9. All right, so now we need to find side A. So if you want, you can think about using this angle measure and just using the fact that this side is the adjacent side. That's one way to go about it. You may have set up a different ratio if you had started with angle A, and that would be fine. So if I want to solve for this side A, then I can use either tangent or the hypotenuse. So I'm just going to choose to go ahead and use cosine because I feel like it. So I would say the cosine of angle B is 23.9, and that equals the adjacent side over the hypotenuse. If you had chosen tangent, you would still get the same value. You would say tangent of 23.9 equals 17 over 42. Well, actually, we don't want to use this at all. I'm sorry. Opposite over adjacent. Tangent of 23.9 equals 17 over A, and solve that way. But since I'm using cosine, I'm going to use the adjacent over the hypotenuse, 42. And then I'm just going to cross multiply these. So in my calculator, type in 42 times the cosine of 23.9 degrees, and I get a length of 38.4. And now I have completely solved this triangle. If we take a look at the second one, we're giving one side, and we know that we can find this third angle by subtracting from 180. So again, every time you're asked to solve, think, what do I need to find? So I need to find the measure of angle A. I need to find side C. Oops, I need to leave some space. That's what I'm trying to do. And I also need to find side A. So I'm going to always put my stick person. If I have an angle that's not a right angle, that's where I'm going to put my little stick person. Make her a girl this time. And then I'm going to label my sides accordingly. I'm going to go ahead and solve for side A first. So this side here. So I'm going to, from angle B, label this my opposite side. This, of course, would be my adjacent side. Side C would be my hypotenuse. So So to solve for the measure of angle B, I can use adjacent and opposite. You may very well have figured out the third angle and put your stick person here. Like I said, there's multiple ways to do this. So I'll say tangent of my angle is equal to opposite over adjacent. And that's what I'm trying to find, is the length of my adjacent side. So if we were to cross multiply this, we would get A times the tangent of 59.2 equals 5. This is the trick that I taught you in class about taco meat or bean dip. I know that sounds really weird if you're not my student. But what that really means is if your variable's on the bottom, you want to end up dividing. So we're going to type in 5 divided by tangent 59.2. So 5 divided by the tangent of 59.2. And I get 3. So we'll go ahead and round that to 3. Since this is 3, hopefully you recognize that it is possible to use your Pythagorean theorem at this time, or you can just go ahead and set up another trig ratio. Because I know the value of my opposite side and I'm trying to find my hypotenuse, I'm going to set up a sine ratio. So I'm going to say sine of 59.2 equals opposite over hypotenuse, so 5 over c. And again, with my variables on the bottom, I'm going to divide. So 5 divided by the sine of 59.2. If you did not set up the same ratios as me, as long as you're getting the same values, you are fine. Don't think you have to have the exact same ratios for your work. But you should get 5.8 no matter what. You can see I actually had worked it out before, and I used, to find C, I did use a sine ratio and tangent on that one. However, on this one, I think I ended up the first time using sine to find B and then tangent to find A. So no matter what, you'll still end up with the exact same values. Lastly, we want to find the measure of the third angle. So I'm just going to take my 180, subtract my 2 angles that I know, and I get 30.8 degrees. Alright, so now I've solved that triangle. Alright, next we are asked to solve a triangle given 2 sides and an included angle. Note that if you are given an angle and a side, you can go ahead and use law of sines. So remember, I've asked you to go ahead and list in your box what we have to find. So we have to find the measure of angle A, we need to find the measure of angle B, and we need to find side B. So these are the 3 things I expect to see in your box. I do recommend going ahead and drawing a triangle and labeling it ABC. Label your sides accordingly. Remember, you label the sides with the same letter but lowercase of the name of your angle, the vertex of your triangle. Alright, so we know that A has a length of 16, C is 21, and angle C is 112. Because we can identify an angle measure with its opposite side, we're going to use our law of sines. So we'll have sine of 112, always your sine of your angle measure, don't forget that, sine of 112 over 21 equals, and now you just need to make a decision about what you want to solve for, but it would be really hard to solve for B since you don't know side B, or solve for side B if you don't know angle B. So I'm next going to go to find angle A because I know side A. So then we would say the sine of angle A over the value of side A, which is 16. At that point, it's just a matter of cross multiply and divide. So I'm typing in 16 times the sine of 112, hitting enter, and then dividing by 21. Remember, we should get a value between 0 and 1, and because we're finding an angle measure, we need to hit inverse sine. So I'm going to hit second sine, second, and then the negative key for your answer. And we get 44.9 degrees for angle A. Now, to find the measure of the third angle, it's simply a matter of taking 180, subtracting the measure of 112, and subtracting the 44.9. And we get 23.1 degrees. Now, because I know side B, or excuse me, angle B is 23.1, now I'm able to find side B. So I'm going to set up another trig ratio, But rather than use the approximated value we got for angle A, I'm going to use this exact value from the first ratio we already used and set up another one. So sine of 112 over 21 equals the sine of angle B, which the sine of B, which is 23.1 over side B. Because I am not finding an angle, I do not have to use inverse sine. So this will be a simple multiply and divide. So 21 times the sine of 23.1, and then I divide by the sine of 112. And we get 8.9. And I've finished solving that triangle. Alright, next if you take a look at number 4, you're given 2 angles and a side this time. So that's going to make finding the third angle really easy. Angle A is 49, B is 23, C is 27. We need the measure of angle C. We need side A, and we need side B. So finding the third angle, of course, is going to be the easiest part. Subtract the two given angles that I know from 180, and I get 108 degrees for angle C. The nice thing about that is now that I know angle C and I know the measure of side C, I can set up a sine ratio. I'll go ahead and find side A first. So I'm going to cross multiply and divide. 27 times the sine of 49, enter, divided by the sine of 108, and I get 21.4. Alright, let's move this over so you can see the calculator steps. Next, I want to find side B, so I'm going to do likewise with the sine ratio. Sine of 108 over 27 equals the sine of 23 over B, because I'm trying to find side B. Same steps, 27 times the sine of 23, divide by the sine of 108, and we get 72 point, let me see if I typed that in right. Oh, I hit divide by accident, I'm sorry. 27 times the sine of 23, divided by the sine of 108, and that was 11.1. Alright, and that concludes that one. The next type of triangle we're given is one where we are given 3 sides but no angles. So if y'all recall, this is where we're going to have to use law of cosines because we do not have enough information to set up our law of sines. So C was 10.9 and B is 9.4. Alright, so it doesn't matter which angle you start with. I'll use A since it's first in the alphabet. So remember your law of cosines, you start with a side and then you're going to end with cosine of that angle. So if I'm finding angle A, my job is to start with side A. So 6.4 squared equals the sum of the other two sides squared, minus 2 times these two sides, and cosine of A. So now remember I taught you that there's a 3-step process for putting this in your calculator, that to solve for cosine A and then do inverse cosine, we are first going to have to get cosine of A by itself, which means that this quantity here is going to have to get subtracted from 6.4 squared. I'm not doing right, 6.4 squared. You do not have to show this step. Remember that I taught you how to do this in your calculator. So I told you I wanted to see the formula, see that you plugged it all in right, but you could do all your steps in the calculator. So we're going to subtract whatever 9.4 squared plus 10.9 squared is from both sides. And then we're going to end up dividing both sides by this quantity. Okay? So here we go, typing it in our calculator. And please practice these steps with me. Make sure you understand if you didn't get the correct answer as you watch this video. So 6.4 squared minus the quantity, and notice I'm putting this in parentheses, 9.4 squared plus 10.9 squared and wrong parenthesis, and I'm going to hit enter. And then I need to divide by this quantity. So divided by -2 times 9.4 times 10.9. Please make sure you type it in exactly as you see me do it. The next step is to do inverse cosine since we're solving for an angle. So we hit second cosine, second and the negative button, and there's our angle. So that is the measure of angle A. Let me go ahead and write in here that we need to define the measure of angle A, the measure of angle B, and the measure of angle C. And A was 35.8 degrees. Alright, so my next step, now that I know an angle, I can go ahead and use law of sines, because I know angle A is 35.8 and side A is 6.4. So remember, I don't have to see your steps, I just need to see you set up your ratio. I'm about to sneeze so hard. Excuse me. Alright, so we have sine of our angle, 35.8, over side A, which is 6.4. And I'm going to go ahead and solve for angle B next. So sine of angle B over its side, 9.4. And then multiply that ratio in my calculator. So 9.4 times the sine of 35.8. Hit enter. Then divide by 6.4. Don't forget, you need to do inverse sine when finding an angle. And our value is going to be 59.2 degrees. The last step would be to take 180 and subtract out the other two angles, 35.8 and 59.2, and we get 85. And that's number 5. Alright, on the last one, I'm going to give you, this time, 2 sides and an angle. If you take a look up here for 3, I give you 2 sides and an angle also. The difference between 3 and 5, or 6 rather, is that for 3 you had an angle and its opposite side measure, so you could use law of sines. This time, we do not. So I'm giving you one of each type on your test. A, B, C. So A is 9.8, B is 7.7, and C is 115 degrees. So here we're going to need to use law of cosines because we do not have the measure of the side opposite the given angle. So that means I want to find side C. So let's go ahead and indicate that we need side C. We need to find the measure of angle A and the measure of angle B. And I'm going to go ahead and use law of cosines. And I don't know C, so I'm going to start off with C squared equals A squared plus B squared minus 2 times A times C cosine of your given angle, 115 degrees. Now the nice thing about this one is it's only a 2-step process. You're going to type every bit of this into your calculator all at one time. Please do not try to break it up into several different steps, all at one time. Now I got 4.41. And then we're going to, let me see, 9.8 squared plus 7.7 squared minus 2 times 7.7. Oh, I forgot my cosine. I'm going to do that all again. 9.8 squared plus 7.7 squared minus 2 times 9.8 times 7.7 times the cosine of 115. And we get 219.11-ish, so second square root, second answer. Because remember, this value that we get, so we got C squared is about 219.11, blah, blah, blah. But we've got to take the square root of both sides to get C. So we've got to take the square root of this answer. When I hit enter, I get 14.8 for the length of side C. Alright, next I want to go ahead and find my angle, but the nice thing, my other angles, but the nice thing is now that I know an angle and its opposite side, guess what we can use? Law of sines. So that means I want to see you set up your sine ratio using these two values. So sine of 115 over 14.8 equals sine of angle A over 9.8. Remember, we're finding an angle, so we need to do inverse cosine in our calculator steps. So I'm going to type in 9.8 times the sine of 115 divided by 14.8, and then second sine, second answer. So 36.9 degrees. And then, of course, the nice thing is all I have to do is take 180, subtract out the given 115 degree measure, subtract out the measure that I found. Oop, too many of those. And I get 28.1 degrees for my last angle. All right, hopefully that helps you better understand how to solve these triangles. Please note that for every value, that's going to count a point on your test. So you had to find 3 for each one. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times 3. This front page is going to be worth 18 points. Okay? Stay tuned for the videos for page 2. Hope that helps.